Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now I'm welcoming you all back to another Tower of God video. And obviously I'm hoping that you all do subscribe to my channel, leave a like, comment on the video, and let's keep climbing the tower. Now we're on the Hell Train and we're picking up where we stopped in the last video where Rachel just pushed Balm for the second time. Now obviously Balm, being the person that he is a very nice guy, but he really lost his cool at the last station, at the first station. So let's see exactly what happens next in the story. So Bam was in an unstable state. They end up picking him up while he's knocked out because he's overloaded himself with the Thorn's power. That's how come his power grew so quickly. And another thing that also happened was the blade that Kun has, which can compress people, he compressed Yuwa and Wagner into it and launch them onto the train. Now, at this point, the train is going to be really interesting because there are three separate sections to talk about, and there's a whole lot of things to talk about that is going on right now. Now, let's get into the motivations of everybody in Rachel's team because Rachel's team is very complicated. Balza Elliott is there on the behalf of Baylord Yama. Baylord Yama was promised that if his mad dog can beat Jovial Grace, he will be given a chance to fill the slot for Slayer nominee because he wants his mad dogs to fill in the Slayer nominee positions. The next thing that is noted is that another member from this entire crew, being Rachel, wants to gain more powerful allies so that she has her own version of a thorn. She may not be able to use the thorn that Balm has, but if she has powerful allies, they'll be her thorns. So basically, she's reinterpreting the legend that Eileen gave, or the prophecy that Eileen gave, where her son will return with the thorn and slay the king's throat. Basically, she's trying to say that she can use a slayer in that position and fill it in that way. But it makes no sense because Rachel is a girl. Okay. And the next thing that happens is we need to understand Yuraha. Yuraha, as I said, her story will come up when her story comes up in the Hell Train. It has to do with the Hell Train. She is running away from the Ha family because they're basically trying to assassinate her because she is part of a very unusual lineage. I'm going to leave this for that last section on the Hell Train when we get to the hidden floor because her story matches in with it perfectly. It explains a lot of what's going on and it actually brings even more context to the Hell floor than you can understand. But nonetheless, not Hell floor, sorry, the hidden floor. It brings in a lot of context to it. Now, with all of this, let's get on to the real nitty gritty, heavy things that happen within the other members. So the other member is Casino, who is aiming to climb up the tower to become a beacon of hope for those who live in the middle area, the abandoned kids, so that they can become just like him, become a monster, and climb the tower. That's how come he stole Ilma's power, Huran. And that is his justification for what he's done. Now, I know that is a terrible and poor justification. It doesn't give enough weight to everything. The Hell Train is one of the most sad arcs for anybody who's watched along with the anime and everything. So be very careful about reading the Hell Train. I warn you that you might end up crying at one point or another in the story. So on the train right now is Rachel's team followed by Wagner. Now, as I said, I'm still telling you everything that's going on with Wagner's team. Daniel Hatchet. Daniel Hatchet is also another really weird member of Rachel's team. Daniel Hatchet is there purely for one reason, to resurrect White. And he's resurrecting White so that White will resurrect the girl who he loves, Rowena, from the team that he was originally part of with the other regulars that I was talking about. If you read the book, you'll understand a little bit more about it once you finish off this entire chapter. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at that. And obviously, that's everybody who is on the train with Rachel. Now, obviously, I'm not getting into Angel because Angel is demented. I'm just going to be simple. She is the child of one of the 10 great families from an illegitimate method of conception. She has a special power that gives her wings, And she ends up going nuts on the Hell Train because she believes that there's something wrong with the Tengri family. I just can't understand her motives, to say the least. Something about them cutting them away like cancers in the tower, and even cancers are living cells. Basically, everything that she says about it, and it's kind of crazy how she speaks about things. But nonetheless, she ends up on the train with her own motives. I don't even understand her motives, to say the least. So moving on from this, we just gonna leave that. Now Wagner is there to capture Casino to take the devil out of him and put it back into Ilma. The next thing of any big note in this entire section is the only other member of the team who is not totally up there 100% in all of these itty bitty stories, which is Yiwa. Yiwa is on the train. She is not really involved in anything at this moment. She's just following up with the team because they basically like her family. And she's learned a lot thanks to them. So that's one of the reasons why she's there. There might be more reasons, like the fact that she's in love with Bam, which she hasn't said, which we can all tell just by the way she reacts and how she reacts about anybody getting close to him. But yeah, that's the other person who's on the train. Now we're going to jump into the next big thing that happens, and this is on the Hell Train. Now I'm going to get to Balm in a second, but on the Hell Train, the next thing that they run into is White. Now this is a future scene. I've actually just captured this by chance because this is one of the best pictures of White I got. Now, White is actually, as I said, five regulars. He's made up of the following regulars: Joaquin, Daniel, Vincent, Anna, and Albelda. I think I might be missing one. Yes, David. David. Sorry. There's five regulars that make him up. Now, there are five children of the direct line from the Arye family, from this very powerful family when it comes to swordsmanship. And what happened was they decided they wanted to surpass their father. Now, their father is unbelievably powerful. He's the strongest member from the 10 family heads, or the second strongest. I'm not exactly sure how it works because when it comes to rankings, if I'm correct, Kun Edwan is number five. He was dethroned from his or number yeah, he's number five. He was dethroned from fourth place because of Yurik Mazino, and he wants to have a rematch with Yurik Mazino someday so that he can get his position back. And on the top is Fentaminum, followed by Andrew, followed by Jahad, followed by Yurik. And if those are the top four, and Edwan is fifth, then that means that Arieh Han is most probably sixth. But sixth is Adori Jahad, who is another total weird one to be there. And then going down, I don't know who else fits into that slot. So yeah, the top 20 is a real heavy spot because they mixed with regulars all around. Okay, so let's go on to the next point of this whole situation on the Hell Train. So these five siblings eventually made a pact with a demon core. Basically, I'm going to call it a demon core. The demon core fused itself to Joaquin to become white eventually, to become the slayer of Fug. And then he ate the souls of his four siblings, and they became a single being with much greater power than any regular should have. They had the power of five regulars to start with, and they had potential to grow much easier. Every time they killed someone by consuming their soul, they got more powerful. Now, we get little hints about what happened to White in the next chapter, the next season. So, in season 3, I'll explain what happened to White properly. But some of the things that you should note: the person who basically inspired him to become a devil or demon is his father. And I know a lot of people say it's bad, but I actually don't think it was meant in a bad way. I think he was motivating his son to actually fight better and to be who he really is. He figured that his son was totally twisted on the inside, and this year was going to cause some kind of split in him. So to prevent his son from going mad with trying to catch up to him the other way that he could never ever do it, he gave him hope in a way that he could do it, which was dangerous to everybody else and could potentially cause him more danger than anything he can imagine. But nonetheless, that's what I think Arye Han actually did, or Ari Han. Um, so yeah, that's the whole thing that goes on with White. So nonetheless, there's all of those who are on the train. Now let's get back to Balm. After that first station, Balm went into overload. Now overload is because he used too much of the Thorn's power, and the Thorn refused to return into his body till his power stabilized. Once he stabilized, they took on a test, and his powers had grown dramatically. He had he had Ultra Instinct basically, so you can't hit him. If anybody understands that reference, you have to have watched Dragon Ball Super. So he has an instinct-like ability that tells him when an attack is coming, and whether you're invisible, visible, moving super fast, he instantly knows what's about to happen, and his body reacts on its own. It gives him enhanced reflexes basically. And in this very, very weakened state, without even drawing power from the thorn, his power just goes through the roof. And I'm saying without drawing from the thorn, it means the thorn was not activated. He has the same power that he had on the platform before they left. So, in other words, that power is now permanently his. And his power goes through the roof, as I'm saying, and he ends up fighting over there, and bam, bam, bam. He just wipes out an entire team like they're nothing. He takes out somebody with an invisible mode thanks to their observer. He takes them out with a single hit, and this is like something really unbelievable. But immediately after his fight, he passes out because there's too much of strain on his body. He's grown way too quickly. So nonetheless, they're still trying to catch up to the Hell train. They couldn't get onto it on the next floor. They had to skip ahead 2 floors, which will take them to the next major platform leading up to the Hell train, and that is going to be the horse station. So the wooden horse station, sorry. The wooden horse station is the 39th floor platform to board the Hell train. Now, the winners from the tournament in Train City end up heading towards the station as well. Borrow with his old teammate AKA and the accompanying Sachi Williams are going to also board the train. Balm and the rest of Sweet and Sour plan to board the train, but they already know that they're going to be late. But before they can reach this point, they have to take one more test. And when they take the next test to advance onto the 39th floor, they end up fighting against, what was his name? Forgetting the name of this individual. Mm, sorry, no, they don't end fighting anybody in particular. They end up in a test against another member of the race which Shia belongs to. So she's like a half bunny member, and Bam ends up fighting her. And she's a fisherman, a very powerful fisherman. And Bam like instantly dodges her like she's nothing. And then he just one shots her out with unbelievable power. At this point, everybody's basically proclaiming he's like a true or a real fisherman. Now, a real fisherman is what they refer to someone who can play any position on the field. He can fight as a wave controller, defender, spear bearer, whatever it is, he has that type of power. He's unbelievably difficult to fight against, and he's definitely a force to be reckoned with. And this is what they note about Palm. So immediately after beating her, he ends up passing out again. They end up taking him on board, and at this point, Jin Sang Ha shows up to stop them from boarding the Hell train. They hear the story from Kun about who's on the Hell train, being this small regular whose code name is Joaquin, and it ends up driving everybody into a corner because Jin Sang Ha says, if you all want to get on, you're going to have to go through me. If Bam can't defeat me, he can't defeat Joaquin. Joaquin is an unbelievably powerful individual. He is more powerful than even what Bam is ready for. So, nonetheless, they devise a plan and they manage to escape from Jin Sang Ha. At this point, Jin Sang Ha can't pursue them because if he uses his power, the administrator will step in and he'll be in a little bit of trouble. Bam ends up going to the wooden horse station, and thanks to one of the members of Kun's family, they end up slowing down the Hell train. They zap it really hard with one of their Shinsu lightning assaults, and it ends up stopping the train temporarily. They get another hour or so to board it. In this time, a whole lot of fighting breaks out as people try to board the train. Boro Sachi, aka, tried to board the train, And Joaquin goes crazy thinking that these guys are the ones who sealed him before he's going to kill them. At this point, Balm arrives and the fight happens between Balm and White. Now, this is just part one of the fight. It's like a little tease at how evenly matched they are or how outmatched Balm is. Balm activates his thorn immediately in this fight and he starts fighting against White. And he's using his standard set of techniques, which are unbelievably difficult to fight against, as I'm obviously elaborating on the fact that he has any technique that is fought against, and he ends up fighting White. At this point, White ends up using his Ari sword technique against him, the proper one. And when Balm is trying to defend against its path, the sword ends up striking him from the exact opposite angle, another place where it shouldn't be. This drives Balm into a real tight corner where he has to draw more power from the thorn if he wants to keep fighting. And they're about to take another big blow when Pedro interferes with this fight. Now, as I said, I'm going to explain just the basics on. Wait 1 second. On this entire section with the Slayer nominee competition. Pedro is a FUG member. He's a servant of Karaka. Karaka is one of the individuals who's hidden himself on the Hell Train to get to the floor of death. That's his primary goal. He also wants to resurrect White so that he has another person in his corner to fight against his enemy later on up the tower. Very Rachel like move to pull. So, nonetheless, we end up finding out that these are all the members. They all working together, and they are the ones who brought Rachel onto the train. So we know that they're being helped by Karaka, but it's also implied that Lazlak is involved in Rachel's involvement in all of this. So Lazlak might have directly helped Rachel out all this time, which is kind of crazy to imagine since he's always trying to protect Palm. Okay, moving on from this section. The next thing that happens is Pedro explains that they are to be uh, separated from each other and they have a month to reach the next floor's platform. If they fail, they drop out, and basically Pedro took Team Sweet and Sour as his hostages. Arc Raptor, Misang, and Prince are his hostages. They'll die if Palm doesn't comply. Along with them is Cheng and Potro. So those are the five who are there all together. This is so crazy. But nonetheless, the Hell Train continues, and basically, we're given this abrupt little snippet about what's going on. So, if Balm and the rest of his team uh, want to take part in this tournament, they have to progress through the train for the next 30 days, make it to the platform where the competition will be held at the end of the month. And if they all arrive there, they'll have a competition for who's going to be Slayer nominee, whether it will be White or whether it will be Balm. Now, Balm says he already rejected the position, and they tell him for as long as he has the thorn, they're not going to let go of him that easily. But he has to win the tournament as well in order to get a say in whether he even can do this here from this point forward, because he interfered in a FUG matter. So, nonetheless, Balm is put into this very heavy situation. Harwin ends up giving Balm a real stern talking to at this point when they're about to take the first test on this floor. Now, the talking to is pretty simple. She tells Balm as follows: You followed Rachel again, and this time you ended up getting burnt and you ended up putting your teammates at risk. If you keep doing this, eventually one day you're going to end up getting everybody killed. You are being as silly as she is, chasing after things which have no importance. And Balm, realizing how badly he's messed up and how many people are in danger this time, ends up doing exactly as she says. He fights every monster, everything all on his own to work up his strength and to train all the way through the Hell Train until they reach the fighting stage. And as they go along, he ends up meeting the God of Guardians. Now, I'm going to hold that off for the next set of stories. Now, on the other side of this entire situation is Rak, um, Wagnan Iwa, and Barrow. She is another individual who is only for the Hell Train. I'm not really so interested in her, and she's not really all that important. Her teammates, Tucci, um, what's the pun school's name? Ida Day Pun School, and I'm forgetting the other member is a chicken on their team. But nonetheless, they end up on the train and they end up running into Vincent. Now, Wagner and Yua run into Vincent. They end up feeding him, and he is way different from Joaquin. He's a nice guy. He ends up siding with them over anybody else because they were kind to him, and they end up running into White. And when they're talking to White, and basically Vincent says that he also wants to be a Slayer, Wagner instantly ends up using the White Heavenly Mirror and putting Vincent inside the blade. Then Barrow's team ends up being assaulted by White's henchman, Bullseye Elliot, at this point, and he ends up killing. Um, he ends up killing one of the other members of this team, and the member of the team that he kills is Tucci. That leads the rest of this Candy team or Team Barrow, to keep pursuing after them and become enemies with White. So they want to take revenge for what happened because Bullseye Elliot killed their friend. And that's how these teams form. Now, Vincent eventually is released from the White Heavenly Mirror after making a deal with Wagner not to hurt, what's his name? Not to hurt Bomb, sorry. And that he wants to defeat Joaquin so that he can become the center of White. And that's where everything stops for this episode. We'll catch on in the next one where we'll go through the complete Slayer nominee competition.